Welcome to the Roy Rundown, a podcast designed to share insights and secrets from top experts in the college sports landscape, guiding you along your own path to success. Join us in real time as we build Roy, dive into the latest NIL trends, and uncover stories from the movers and shakers in the sports business space. You'll hear from an all-star lineup of guests, including athletes, coaches, agents, fans, athletic administrators, and more. Whether you're a student athlete, passionate fan, or anyone in between, this is your go-to resource for leveling up in the new age of college sports.
Welcome back to the Roy Rundown. Today we've got another game-changing college athlete joining us, a standout football player for the University of Pittsburgh, a stand-up guy off the field known for his outgoing personality and many other things. And he's the definition of a scholar athlete as he is right now studying for his master's degree. Chief Borders, welcome to the Roy Rundown.
Appreciate that, Kev, man. How you doing?
Good. I'm glad to have you. I'm excited to jump into all facets of NIL and your journey and what you do off the field. So before we jump into that, I'll give you the stage here to just introduce yourself a little bit. Talk about growing up, and I believe you come from a very big family. So growing up and how sports entered your life, and then we'll go from there.
All right, cool, man. First things first, man. I'm Chief Borders, man. I appreciate y'all having me on the Roy Rundown. Man, I'm just glad to be on here. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
So really the rundown, when it comes to like family, obviously I'm the youngest out of 8, so that's one of the biggest things. So my siblings grew up playing, football, basketball, ran track. I mean, a lot of things, a lot of attributes, a lot of accolades, a lot of everything. So that was just a blueprint for me growing up, like everything, all the time. Even my siblings, my cousins, like it just runs in the family.
Youngest of 8. So were you were on the football field with your older brothers and whatever sport with your older sisters, and is that how you got so good so quickly? I mean, being the youngest, the youngest is usually the best.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically the situation of how that went down, but I definitely have to put a lot of hard work in it.
Of course.
They have the speed, some of them have the strength. But me, I had to work for it all. I had to really work for it, and I put the time and the effort and grind in. So they talk about 10,000 hours for sure. I'm probably, if they're right above it.
For sure. And so growing up, obviously, once you kind of became really good at football, was there a specific game or specific time in whether it was high school or even earlier that you were like, whoa, like I'm good at this and I can actually use this skill set to play at the next level? So was there a time that you remember where you were like, I want this and I'm going to work towards this?
Definitely grinding for it my 8th grade year, just starting to see it. But it didn't really hit me until, I'll say, like the ending of my sophomore year. And that's when I really took a new level, took a new step towards my sport. I went to like the Mercer camp. And I ended up leaving the Mercer camp with 13 offers from D1 colleges all over, and I was like, okay, I can do this. That just gave me a little inspiration, and then the discipline aspect, just staying motivated on the field, staying consistent to what got me there. So yeah, man, it was probably like end of the sophomore year, and then I started getting offers.
That's awesome. So all right, so you leave that camp and you get 13 offers, and I'm sure obviously more came after that. So walk me through the process, like the recruiting process. What were you looking for in a school? How did you manage? I mean, I can only imagine having 10 offers, let alone 13, 14, 15 and more. Like, how did you manage that process?
First things first, I always wanted the best of both worlds. Younger me, I was like, okay, yeah, best of both worlds. I want the school part of it, and I want the the football aspect of it as well. So that's just one of the real groundbreaking rules that I had, going into my recruiting process. And, that led me to the University of Florida at the time. And I was just happy to be there. I'm happy to just, soak in all the knowledge and get my playing time there as well. Like, just reap all the benefits of being there in Gainesville.
And obviously you started at Florida, and then you spent a year at Nebraska. So I guess we can call you a vet before you got to Pitt. But before we get into Pitt, like, can you talk a little bit about that process of, obviously, there's we don't have to get into millions of reasons why the transfer portal exists or why players transfer in general. But like, what was that process like for you from, maybe finding it wasn't the right fit, or you were looking for something different, or a coach change, like all these reasons? What was the process for you getting to, leaving Florida and then leaving Nebraska to get to Pitt?
I would definitely say it was a coaching change, coaching staff change, but, just wanted a new environment. When my freshman year, freshman coaching staff got fired. I stayed there for another season, just looking at different ways to go about things. I ended up entering the portal, as a young buck, as a newbie on the field, just trying to find his way. I ended up getting an offer from Nebraska and a plethora of other schools, but Nebraska was the one that really stuck out to me. They recruited me from my high school days, and I was like, okay, cool, like Nebraska, why not? And I just went and took that opportunity, and I'm definitely glad that I made that choice.
Yeah, and I want to highlight two things that you said, just because it's part of the reality of college football now with NIL, but it's also the reality of life. And you said coaching change and then new environment. And so, I know there's a lot of we'll dive into NIL here shortly, but there's a lot of people out there that don't like the fact that players can transfer, and it's like, okay, well, and obviously there's differences, but okay, if you have a job in any industry and your boss leaves, okay, you're going to leave. Or if you have a job in any industry and you want to move locations or industries or companies, and you have a skill set and you have opportunities, I mean, it's no one complains about that, right? So
kind of similar, yeah, kind of similar to the same.
Similar, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to highlight that. But again, that's the reality of the college football, college sports landscape. Cool. So okay, I'm sure we could talk about Florida and Nebraska for a long time, but let's dive into Pitt, man. So ultimately coming to Pitt, tell me a little bit about it. Tell like the audience, like who might not be as familiar about Pittsburgh. So one of my college teammates, his brother Chaz Alexi was a Pitt Panther.
Okay.
And so I heard all about, the Pitt football when I was in college and the culture there. But for those who are not familiar, tell about it, man.
Man, first things first, the culture runs deep. I mean, you can literally go on from like Aaron Donald to Mike Ditka. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, one of the things that stuck out to me is like we shared the practice facility with the Steelers, and I'm like, what? Like, oh my. And then Coach Narduzzi always been there for a minute now. So I'm like, man, like Pitt definitely stuck out to me. The fan base is just through and through, traditional. We're a traditional team. Our culture is just grew up on discipline, toughness, effort. So, I mean, marking off those boxes fit in within that. And then also Pittsburgh is a business city. You can definitely see that. I'm getting my MBA, right? Like focusing on getting my MBA now. So, it just kind of plays into the part of like, yeah, doing our thing.
No, that's great. Obviously a lot of attributes there. The football side for development, the facilities, the environment, the business environment, but talk a little bit about the fan base and the community there, like maybe on campus. Obviously at games I want to hear about too, but sometimes fans are undervalued.
Okay.
So how big of an impact, fans play for you guys and how it affects the games?
Man, anytime you have a fan base show up with a blow up shark, a sharked up, man. Shout out to all my sharks, man. Free my sharks. That's the linebacker core, If you know, you know. But man, anytime your fan base show up with a blew up shark, man, and they're just like doing the shark sign with us, after we make TFL sacks, make a play on the field. Anytime your fan base, like they know your name, like they're screaming and yelling at you, you know what I'm saying? Like that's just love, It's for the game. Our student section is always there, making sure they're loud and rowdy, just to get us going. And we appreciate that, man. Fans are everything. Fans is everything when it comes to the game of football.
And so I imagine, not to backtrack here, but fans can obviously hype you up, but fans of maybe opposing teams or when you transferred might have the negative effect too. So do you have an experience of or any feedback on like, what it's like to, maybe get DMs or get, social media tags from opposing fans, or like when you transfer, like talk about that, man, because not a lot of people talk about it, but it's real.
Yeah, I mean, it get real hectic. It's a lot of people. Obviously, it's opinion based. There's always going to be opinions in the game of football or just in life in general. So everybody's going to speak their mind, speak the truth. So, I got a couple crazy DMs. People just going at it. Just bashing. But then there's always like the great side, like where people just love me for who I am, showcasing my talents on the field. The positive energy that I bring on a day-to-day basis. But man, I got some gruesome text messages. I ain't gonna put any fan bases on blast, but they know who they are. They're out there.
But yeah, I mean, I want to highlight that because it's not talked about a lot. But on the other side too is the positive stuff. So I can also imagine that you get tagged or DM'd, and you can't answer all of them, but you've seen a tweet or you've seen something where it's like it fired you up, like pregame, and those fans don't necessarily know that, but that's also real, right?
Oh yeah, I use that negativity and turn it to positive. Like if somebody got some crazy nonsense to say, I'm like, oh, okay, bet. Like, oh, he won't get a sack this game, and then like go get a sack. You only had this amount of tackles. So, okay, I'm about to double that. So like it's just used as motivation. I appreciate those words, and I'm gonna use those in the right way. I ain't gonna go bicker. I'm not going to bicker back and forth with you.
For sure, use it as fuel. I love it. All right, well let's transition to, because I want to talk about fans like the NIL landscape, but let's just talk generally speaking. We mentioned before you're quite the vet in the in this category because you've experienced it all. So and obviously you're very active in the NIL space in general, in particularly in regards to like the entrepreneurial side, the brand side, which we'll also touch on shortly. But can you just share like how NIL has impacted you directly?
NIL changes lives, man. It changes lives. It allows athletes, whether you're scholarship, walk on, to showcase who you are, your platform, your brands. Because, I mean, even your last name could get you some great, deals for, NIL. Like, it just goes on a long way. I feel like it opens a lot of doors for not just, the football part of sports, but every sports team that's out there.
And you just talked about building your brand. Share more about that, because it's not easy. I mean, obviously, again, NIL has many different, let's call it like revenue streams or avenues from collectives to brand deals to other platforms like Roy, but you also have to have a brand, right, in order to take advantage of that. And I know you've done a great job of building that brand. And so talk about A, building your own brand, but B, balancing that with actually, the academics and the football season.
Man, that's real. I'll have to say it definitely started when I was at Florida, building that brand. Me and my boy Donovan McMillan. We started off, just doing Instagram reels, TikToks, and things of that nature. Building the brand is everything. It's what gets the fan base there. It what gets the fans there to your profile, to your traction, right? Your style of play is what keeps them there. Especially when you're working in a football, environment. That's what keeps the fan base there. So you got to just keep up, both sides. I mean, school, have a great, balance between the both, because I've been there, where the balance wasn't there. So you got to just balance. And as time goes on, you'll start to get a hang of things, how things are supposed to go, like posting and, locking in on the game and playbook and things of that nature. Like that all comes to play in being an athlete now, because NIL is here, man. I mean, you got to be able to balance all these trials and errors. It's going to be trial and error, but you got to be able to balance all these aspects as you become a student athlete.
Yeah, and that's real life. And like you said, NIL is here and it is not going anywhere. So we just talked about brand deals, building your brand. Obviously, before we mentioned there's the collective deals, but I think one aspect, obviously, that Roy is trying to hit here and to bring to light here is that there's one group that is missing out, right? And that group's one of the most important groups, and that's the everyday fans, right? Like college sports are fueled by passion. They're fueled by the messages we talked about before, and supporting their favorite teams and their favorite players. But right now, again, like the way that system's set up, it prioritizes the corporate dollars and the wealthy individuals, which is fine because it's what NIL started as. but it leaves out those fans. And so that's what we're trying to do here. And obviously that's what Roy is, allowing fans to, support individual specific athletes. So can you give me your kind of take on, or maybe what you like about the Roy app and, how it's changing NIL for you?
Yeah, scrolling through it briefly, Roy definitely allows the whole platform to just expand the wings to the fan base, man. Connect directly with your player. Your player that you love, that you follow, have a great game. You're able to send them a great conversation to that point. After having a great game, balling. I mean, whether it's a walk-on, whether transfer. You've been there for 6 years. The loyalty. A player is a player, and when they play great, they shall be rewarded. So the Roy app does that, and it allows fans to interact with their fans, day in and day out.
Yeah, and we talked about this before. Obviously, like you mentioned, walk on, and that hits home for me because I was a former walk on. But when somebody says NIL, a lot of people automatically think these $1 million deals for the top 1%. But the reality is, not every single student athlete gets a collective deal or a brand partnership deal or has an agent. And so, allowing fans, the everyday fan, to support every single athlete, specifically who they want to support, is super important. And there's one other topic I do want to touch on and get your perspective on, because of course you've had experience at 3 different places doing this, is the transparency factor. And obviously this has changed from the first day that NIL was allowed to now, and I'm sure it's going to hopefully change for the better in the future. But you hear about these future promises, right? And whether it's through collective, a fund, or a brand deal. How important is transparency in these deals for you, in terms of like what somebody says, it's going to happen?
Transparency. I mean, being transparent, being honest. When it comes to a fan base, genuinely, a fan having an app like Roy, they can literally connect directly with you. If they send you $50, that $50 going straight to your pocket, and it won't get mixed up into the collective or anything like that. It'll get straight into your pocket, and that's what this app brings. It allows the fan to work directly and share that input and that thought on how they think about their player.
Exactly. And I know we've talked a lot about the different streams, and just to reiterate, it's like this is another tool, right? There's the fact is there's a lot of dollars out there. There's a lot of passionate fans out there that want to support, but right now they don't. And so this isn't saying that collectives are bad. This is simply an additional tool for additional revenue, right? Athletes can have as many brand deals as they want and have collective money, but also the reality is, as we move forward with the new NCAA house settlement, there's going to be, call it what you want, in quotes, a salary, and then there's going to be a free market above that for additional dollars and additional value. So that's where Roy comes into play and does the things that you just mentioned as well. Yeah, so I want to talk about now the fun part too, because obviously we all know you're good at football. We all heard about your football journey. So let's talk about Chief off the field, man. Obviously the entrepreneurial side of you is awesome, and I love seeing it. You built your brand, you've done deals. So yeah, talk about that. Talk about some aspirations outside of football, what you love outside the game.
Man, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. One thing I definitely got to do better of, like, starting to balance, that content creator side. I know my fans, miss that, being able to, pop in on my page and just see, like, I posted a funny video and, like, it goes viral. As I said, the videos, the reels is what gets the fans there. Your style of play is what keeps them there. So you got to be able to just maximize both ends. I always like to, just kind of steer the boat a little bit. I try to dabble in the fashion. I try to dabble in the content. Also try to just dabble, into just including my teammates to, create funny reels. And, that's what really brings the team together, man. Like, when it comes to, like, making memories with each other, that's one of the real aspects that come to it. I just love that, love that.
Yeah, and you talked about fashion, so dive into that. What's chief in fashion, man? Like I think I can't remember what I saw, something that you posted on your Instagram a while back. You were at some fashion shows, or like, what do you love about fashion? What are you doing with fashion?
Man, fashion, and first things first, it was an inspiration from my sister. She actually dressed me as I grew up, being a young buck, always, having to wearing crazy different colors and patterns and stuff. Like, she helped me get dressed. But as I got older, I just, put an emphasis on it. Like, man, I have the eye for it, the vision for it to, like, create and mismatch like different things to make it pop, to make a color just sit on your skin very well. I mean, the fashion is just another way of art, as I think of it. It's another way of catching somebody's eye, or another way of diving into something that's just creative. That's what I love to do, and it's another way of like content creating as well.
And so obviously you have NFL aspirations, but is that something you when you think about when the ball eventually stops bouncing, because it does for everyone, right? It did for me very quickly, right? But when it does stop bouncing,
man, you still got it. You still got it. Come on, Kevin.
Hey, I'll tell you what. You're right. I don't play defense, but I still got it.
Hey, that's real. Hey, come on.
But when it does stop bouncing, is that something you see yourself doing? I also know that you mentioned cooking too, and you like to cook. So I might have to hear the best go-to dish.
Man, I would definitely say, I love to, dabble in a lot of those, natures of fashion as well as cooking. I mean, content goes a long way. We know that, podcasting, that goes a long way. So I love to dive into fashion. I love to dive into, monetizing my brand, as far as football. And when it comes to being in that NFL spectrum, they put that drip on, man. They love styling and making sure they look good before they walk into that game, walk into that stadium. So I definitely inspire myself on looking great, but also playing great. Because when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you play good. When you play good, they pay good. So that's all that matters, man.
I love that. I love that,
man. Uncle Dion.
You mentioned your brand real quick here, and I know as we start to wrap up, you mentioned your brand, and I think I forget the exact phrase that you have on your on your brand or your website. It's something about obviously always staying positive and battling through adversity. Talk about that. Is that like the core of your brand?
Definitely, always get through. Wake up, grind, shine, repeat. But within all of that, the adversity is going to strike. So it's always on you to know who you are. Go down that journey of finding yourself. What you like and what you don't like. Those things are the little things that people just overlook. But it's what gets you through the beautiful day. As far as like the little things, waking up and making your bed. The discipline is what gets you through. So you just gotta stay true to who you are and what you love to do and what's your reason why you play. Like I said, my boy Axel, I'm part of Axel's army, man. So my boy Axel is a guy who, who's fighting for his life right now, battling cancer, but he's like one of the greatest people I ever met on this earth. So I'm glad to be his mentor, and he's another reason why I play this game and my inspiration.
That's great. Yeah, always have to remember your why, and I think that part of your answer right there might be the answer to this last question. But if you can give advice to someone who's listening, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of younger athletes listening that want to be where you are right now. What would a piece of advice be to them?
Be yourself, man, and stay true to yourself. And sometimes you're not gonna always fit into the crowd. Sometimes you're not meant to be in the crowd. So just stay true to who you are, and find your shine. Because once you find your shine, bro, can't nobody take it from you.
Amen. All right, man. Last thing I got for you here. Last thing I got for you. I think you're gonna crush this. You're gonna love this one. It's called the Roy Rundown Rapid Fire. So I just rapidly shoot you with some questions, and you got to hit the first thing that comes to your mind.
All right, bet.
All right, here we go. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
If you had to play a sport other than the one you're playing right now, what would it be?
Hockey.
If you, I like it. Hey, yeah, you're playing right. First thing comes to your mind. If you could have a dream NIL deal with any company, what company would it be?
Native Body Wash.
Who's the funniest person on the team?
PJ O'Brien Jr.
If you could trade places with anyone in the world and live a year in their shoes, who's one of the first people that comes to mind?
Floyd Money Mayweather.
That's a good one. What is one of your biggest strengths?
My ill will to keep going.
Who is one of the first people to really believe in you?
My dad.
What's one of your biggest fears?
I say not living up to what I say I am.
And last one here. I know you will too. Last one here. What is one piece of advice that if you went back in time 10 years ago, you would give to your former self?
Just knowledge. Um, I'll just say keep going, man. Like you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing right now, and just stay focused. Just stay grinding. Keep grinding. As I would say, keep grinding, keep doing your thing, because 21-year-old you is looking right at you and was like, man, you came a long way, and I'm pretty sure 30-year-old me is gonna be like, man, we doing it, so let's keep going.
Amen to that. Well, I think one other thing that I took away from your website is to stay true to yourself and attack each day or start each day with a yes sir. Do you want to end this with a yes sir? Is that like a thing you do? Is that your mantra?
Yes, sir, y'all. You already know, man. Chief Borders, man. I appreciate you, Kev, man, having me on the Roy Rundown, man. That was awesome. Appreciate you, man.
I love it. I appreciate you.
Oh, yeah.